this is text problem 3-2 from chapter 3. And we're told in the table here the price, quantity demanded, and quantity supplied of pre-recorded movie DVDs. It tells us, suppose that in a recent market period, the industry-wide survey determined the relationship between the price of the pre-recorded DVDs and the quantity supplied and quantity demanded, shown in the table below, and depicted in the graph to the right. So this is our supply and demand for these DVDs in the market period that was surveyed. Next, we're supposed to suppose that a survey for a later market period indicates that the quantities supplied in the table are unchanged, so we're going to keep these numbers, but the quantity demanded has increased by 30 million units at each price. So the quantity demanded has increased at each price. So the first thing it wants us to do is use the multi-point curve drawing tool, draw and label the new demand curve for movie DVDs. Properly label this line. So I'm going to click the little magnifying glass here to pull it up, make it easier to draw on. And I'm going to click the multi-point drawing tool as it asks me to. Alright, so the first point I want to graph here is at the price 20. Remember that price is on the vertical axis and quantity demanded or output is on the horizontal axis. So a price of 20, what is my new quantity demanded? It used to be 120 million, and they're telling us that it's gone up by 30 million now, so my new quantity demanded at a price of 20 is 150 million. So I'm going to go over on the 20 line to 150, and I'm going to put my first point there. The second point, at 21, it used to be 110 million. Add 30 to that, so now it's 140 million. So at 21, I'm going to put a dot or a point at 140 and go on down the table like this. At 22, it used to be 100, so now it's 130. It'll be right here. And at 23, it used to be 90, so now it's 120. So that'll be right here. You can see 120 is down here, so that's where I'm putting my dot. And lastly, at 24, it used to be 80 million, so now it will be 110 at 24. So that's this dot right here. Okay? And so now I will long press to end my curve as it tells me up at the top. And I've got my curve, and I want to properly label the line. To label it, you just click the three little question marks and pick what you're labeling. So now I'm labeling, this is my new demand curve, so I'll label it D1 for my new demand, and I'll click save. Okay, and second, it wants me to use the point drawing tool to indicate the new equilibrium point and label it E1. So I'll pull up my big graph again. Where's the new equilibrium? Remember, equilibrium is wherever the demand and supply curves cross, where they intersect. So with my new demand curve, my new equilibrium point, I'm going to click the point tool over here to put a dot at my new equilibrium point, which is where my new demand curve crosses my old or same old supply curve. Remember, the supply curve doesn't change because they told us that the quantities supplied in the table remained the same. And the only thing that changed was our demand quantities. So I'll put my new equilibrium here at 23 and 120 and click the question marks to label it. Oops, I think I clicked the wrong thing. So click these question marks, there we go, and label it E1 because that's equilibrium, my new equilibrium E1. And then click save. And now we'll check that. And it says we're good. Excellent. Alright, so next we want to decide whether demand has increased, decreased, or remained the same. And you can tell this by looking at the graph and see that our old demand curve was here on the left. Our new demand curve is to the right of that. Anytime it shifts to the right, it means it has increased. A shift to the left would be a decrease. Staying in the same place would be neither. And a shift to the right is an increase. So we can say that demand has increased. Our new equilibrium price is right here where the new demand curve crosses the old supply curve, and that's at a price. Remember, price is on the the vertical axis, so it's at a price of $23. So our new equilibrium price is 23. Our new equilibrium quantity is the same thing. At that equilibrium point, we come down to the quantity axis, which is the horizontal axis, and we look and see that that equilibrium is at 120 million units. I'm just going to put that in here. And last, it's going to give us a series of statements, and it wants us to tell it if a change in ceteris paribus condition described below, so if the statement described below is true, could this cause the demand to increase? And we're going to answer yes or no. So an increase in the number of buyers, would that cause demand to increase? Remember what demand is? It's the number of people who want to buy something. So sure, if we increase the number of buyers, we could increase demand. And a decrease in cost of production. So if it costs less to produce something, is that going to increase our demand? And remember, it's generally a good rule of thumb to remember that cost and price don't change demand or supply. They change quantity demanded, perhaps, or quantity supplied, but they won't shift the entire demand curve. So the answer there is no. Consumer incomes decrease. So if a person's income decreases, does that mean they're going to want more DVDs? Person's income decreases, do they want more DVDs? Generally, no. If you have less money on you, you're probably going to buy fewer DVDs, right? Especially because it tells us DVDs are a normal good, which means the more money you got, the more of them you want. So the less money means you want fewer. The price of movie downloads rise. So movie downloads would be considered probably a substitute for DVDs, right? If you can download a movie, then you wouldn't need to go buy a DVD. So if the price, though, of the movie downloads goes up, you may be more likely to go get a DVD. So I would say that, yeah, if the price of the substitute increases, then the demand for the DVDs should increase. The number of sellers increases. So if the number of people who sell DVDs is increasing, is that going to make you want a DVD more? It probably doesn't affect how much a person wants a DVD or how much the market wants the DVD. So I'm going to say no to that. Just because more people are selling them doesn't mean you want more of them. There we go. That's the end of the question. Hope that helps. If you have more questions about this, feel free to stop by my office hours.